A young woman with everything money could buy sat in a corner of a glittering Nashville cafe, yet she had nothing she needed most. On her birthday, the millionaire's deaf daughter lit a candle, whispered in silence with her hands, and signed happy birthday to herself. Not a single soul around her spoke her language. To them, she was invisible, but when a single dad entered that cafe, he noticed what everyone else ignored. He understood her silence and answered it. That moment would not only change her birthday, but forever rewrite the story of three lonely hearts. Before we go any further, tell us in the comments where in the world you're watching from. We love seeing just how far our stories reach. The heat in downtown Nashville pressed down like a heavy blanket, but inside the Boulevard Cafe, the air carried a different kind of chill. Logan Hayes had no intention of being there. He had promised his 8-year-old son Asher an afternoon at the park, swings, slides, and sunshine. But a stubborn client insisted this trendy cafe was the only place for their meeting. So instead of chasing laughter on the playground, Logan found himself surrounded by polished marble tables, overpriced coffee, and people who looked more like magazine ads than neighbors. And that's when he saw her. She was sitting at the corner table by the wide glass window, where the light painted her hair gold, like a halo the world didn't deserve. Her dress whispered wealth. Her pearls caught every flicker of light, but none of that mattered. What caught Logan's attention were her hands. They weren't fidgeting. They weren't nervously tapping. They were speaking, flowing through the air in precise movements that most people would mistake for gestures. But Logan knew better. She was signing, "Happy birthday" to me. The words hit him like a punch to the chest. His throat tightened as he recognized the practiced rhythm of her fingers, the familiar grace of each motion. This wasn't just communication, it was a ritual, a plea whispered into silence. And it was a plea no one else in the cafe understood. Her shoulders sank with every sign. Her lips moved around words she would never hear. This wasn't joy. It wasn't celebration. It was surrender. A waiter approached, carrying polite detachment behind his polished smile. He gestured at the untouched cake, one small candle waiting for breath. She shook her head gently, touched her ear, and scribbled something on a napkin. The waiter nodded awkwardly and retreated, the silence hanging heavier than before. Logan's eyes followed her finger as she traced the chocolate words written across the plate. "Happy 23rd birthday, Tessa." Moments later, a man in a designer suit strolled by. He leaned toward her, exaggerated his mouth like an actor in a bad play, his volume implied even through the glass. She smiled politely, a smile so well rehearsed it might as well have been painted on. He patted her shoulder and left, probably thinking he'd done his good deed for the day. Logan's hands twitched instinctively, starting to shape a name, Oliver, before he caught himself. Oliver was gone. His little brother had been gone for 5 years. But grief had its own kind of muscle memory. Some habits clung too tightly to let go. Another visitor, this time a woman dripping with jewelry, leaned in. More exaggerated words. Another empty pat. Another retreat. To the people of that cafe, Tessa wasn't a young woman. She was an exhibit. A beautiful tragedy behind glass. The deaf daughter of the Caraway Empire. Please admire. Please don't engage. Something inside Logan snapped. Before his mind could stop him, his body was already moving. His client would be there in less than 10 minutes. He didn't care. He walked toward her table, drawn by the way she signed to herself like someone clinging to a lifeline. He stopped just before her and signed, "Excuse me." Her hands froze mid-gesture. Her eyes widened, searching his face as though trying to solve an impossible puzzle. For a moment, the air between them stilled. "I don't mean to intrude," Logan continued, his hands steady. "But happy birthday." The transformation was instant. The carefully constructed wall she wore, the polite smile, the composed posture, cracked wide open. For the first time, someone had stepped into her silence, and the desperation that flickered across her expression was both heartbreaking and breathtaking. "You sign?" she asked, her hands trembling. "My brother was deaf," Logan replied. The words slipped out in past tense before he could stop himself. He wished he could pull them back, but she didn't hesitate. She gestured urgently at the chair across from her. "Please, sit." Logan glanced at his phone, Hayden's name lighting up the screen. He silenced it. In her eyes, he didn't see wealth or privilege or an heiress to the Caraway fortune. He saw someone drowning, someone who had just been thrown a rope. He took the chair. "I'm Logan," he signed. Her response was eager, frantic even, like a dam breaking. "Tessa." Her hands moved faster, relief radiating through every gesture. "I haven't signed with anyone in 3 months. Maybe 4, she laughed, sharp and bitter. "My father? Grayson Caraway doesn't sign. He buys, he donates. He gifts. See this dress? $3,000. But one birthday in sign language? That's priceless. That's what I wanted. And never got." Logan's phone buzzed again. He ignored it. "How long have you been deaf?" he asked. "Since I was 4. Meningitis." Her signs were matter of fact, the way people recite stories they've told too many times. My father's solution? Money, doctors, hearing aids, schools, everything but learning to talk to me. "That must be lonely," Logan signed. Her eyes narrowed, studying him. "You have no idea. Or maybe you do. You said your brother was deaf. Was." The question hung heavy in the air. Logan swallowed and signed words he rarely shared. "He died. 5 years ago. Heart condition." Not because he was deaf. Her expression softened. "I'm sorry. How long had you been signing?" she asked. 20 years. "Since Oliver was born. He was 16 years younger than me. My parents were overwhelmed, so I became his translator, his protector, his bridge." Her hands slowed, contemplative. And now Logan's eyes lowered. "Now I sign to empty rooms. Conversations with a brother who never answers. Arguments I never finished. Memories I can't let go." She nodded slowly. "I signed to myself too. Arguments with my father where I finally say what I want. Jokes no one hears. Dreams no one listens to. This," she gestured between them, "is the most I've communicated with someone in months." And in that fragile moment, the foundation of a story began. The cafe door swung open, and Logan's client stepped inside, Hayden Smith, every inch the impatient businessman in a crisp suit. He scanned the room, spotted Logan, and began striding over with the energy of a storm cloud. Tessa's hands faltered mid-sign. "You're meeting someone," she signed quickly, her eyes dropping, her hands already retreating into her lap. "I understand." But Logan was already on his feet, intercepting Hayden halfway. "Family emergency," he said aloud. "We'll have to reschedule." Hayden's face burned red, his jaw tight with irritation. "Family emergency here?" Logan didn't wait for the argument. He returned to the table, silencing his buzzing phone before sliding it into his pocket. Tessa stared at him, disbelief written across her face. "You just ignored your client," she signed. "We'll survive," he answered simply, lowering himself back into the chair. "Now tell me, why are you here alone on your birthday?" Her hands hesitated, then moved slowly, testing whether this connection was real. "My father is in Tokyo, another deal. He sent this cake and had his secretary deliver it here, because this cafe is where he brings his business partners. I think he thought it would feel like being with him. But it doesn't. It feels like being a prop in his world." Bitterness hardened her gestures. "You know what's ironic? His entire empire is built on communication, negotiating, persuading, connecting. But 19 years and he never learned my language." Logan studied her face, thought about Oliver, about the fumbling way their parents had tried but still reached out. How he had stepped in, become the bridge. He signed carefully. Maybe he's afraid. Afraid of what? She asked sharply, afraid of failing. Afraid of being not enough. She paused, her hands lowering, her expression unreadable. It was as though the idea had never occurred to her. Then she changed the subject. "Tell me about your son. You mentioned promising him something." Logan's lips softened into a smile. "Asher. He's 8. I promised him the park today, but..." He gestured around the cafe. "And instead you sat with a stranger," Tessa teased gently. "You looked like you needed a conversation more than he needed the swings." "What about his mother?" Logan's hand slowed. "She left when Asher was 2. Said parenthood wasn't for her. She sends birthday cards sometimes when she remembers." Tessa nodded slowly, sympathy flickering in her expression. "So you understand. Being abandoned by someone who was supposed to love you unconditionally. It's different for you," Logan signed. "Your father is still here, is he?" Her question lingered heavy in the air. Physical presence isn't the same as being present. At least your ex was honest enough to leave. The honesty stung, but Logan couldn't argue. She was right. Would you like to meet him? Logan found himself signing before he could think better. Asher, I mean. I could teach him to sign happy birthday. The hope that bloomed across Tessa's face was so raw it almost hurt to see. You'd do that? He's been curious for months. Saw me signing to myself and begged to learn. He'd love it. You could bring him tomorrow? She asked, then quickly backtracked. Sorry, presumptuous. Forget I said that. Tomorrow's perfect, Logan interrupted. Same time. Her lips curved into something he hadn't seen until now. A genuine smile. It lit her entire face, chasing away the practiced composure. As Logan stood to leave, his phone buzzing again, Tessa signed one more thing. Thank you. For seeing me. Not the deaf girl. Not the millionaire's daughter. Just me. Logan's throat tightened. Tessa, he signed back. That's all I saw from the beginning. Walking to his car, Logan thought about Oliver, about the years of signing that felt wasted after his brother's death. Maybe they weren't wasted. Maybe they had led him here to this woman, to this connection across silence. Inside the cafe, Tessa watched him go. Her fingers moved without thought, signing his name into the empty space. Logan, the first person in years to choose her company over business, to step into her isolation instead of politely stepping around it. Her phone buzzed. A text from her father lit the screen. Happy birthday, sweetheart. The cake should have arrived. Sorry I couldn't be there. The Tokyo deal is important for our future, she typed back with trembling hands. Met someone today who speaks my language. The reply came within seconds. Excellent. Networking is important. What company does he work for? She didn't answer. How could she explain that Logan's worth had nothing to do with networking, nothing to do with business, that his value was in the simple, radical act of understanding her? The next day, Logan walked into the cafe again, but this time Asher was bouncing at his side, barely able to contain his excitement. Is that her? The boy asked, pointing eagerly toward the window where Tessa sat waiting. Yes, Logan whispered, kneeling to his son's level. But remember what we talked about. Slow hands, clear eyes, and let her finish before you sign back. Asher nodded solemnly, though his grin betrayed him. Then, before Logan could stop him, he darted toward the table, small hands already forming words he had practiced all night. Hello, I'm Asher. Happy birthday. Yesterday. Tessa's eyes filled with tears instantly. She looked up at Logan, who shrugged with a sheepish smile. He practiced all night, Logan signed. It's perfect, she answered before turning back to Asher with slower, clearer movements. Hello, Asher, thank you. Would you like to learn more? The boy nodded eagerly, and just like that, the silence between them was no longer empty. For the next 2 hours, the cafe faded into the background. Tessa taught Asher colors and animals, simple phrases that made his eyes sparkle. Logan translated context when needed, but Asher didn't need much. His determination carried him. Other patrons stared, some smiling, some puzzled. But Tessa didn't notice. For once, the world outside her table didn't matter. This is like a secret code, Asher whispered to Logan between lessons. Not everyone needs it, Logan explained. But Tessa needs it, Asher said simply. So we should know it. The logic was simple, unshakable, and so right it made Tessa's throat tighten. She signed thank you to him, and Asher beamed as if he had won a prize. What began as a lonely birthday was becoming something else entirely. Something fragile, hopeful, alive. 3 weeks slipped by faster than any of them expected. What began as chance meetings became routine. Logan brought his laptop, working between conversations, while Asher soaked up every new sign Tessa taught him. What amazed Logan wasn't just his son's enthusiasm. It was how Tessa glowed when teaching him. Every smile, every laugh, every gentle correction seemed to stitch together a part of herself she hadn't known was torn. But change never arrives without interruption. The Boulevard Cafe door opened one late afternoon, and in walked a figure Tessa knew instantly. Her father, Grayson Carraway, wasn't just a man. He was a presence. His tailored suit, his expensive watch, his commanding stride, all of it screamed power. He was the kind of man who negotiated skyscrapers into existence, who closed billion-dollar deals before breakfast. But today, as he stood frozen in the doorway, he saw something unfamiliar. His daughter, his quiet, isolated daughter, was laughing. Her hands moved freely, alive with animation as she signed to Logan and Asher. The sight of her joy, unfiltered and unforced, rooted him to the floor. The cafe manager hurried to his side. "Mr. Carraway, would you like your usual table?" Grayson's voice faltered. No, I'll join my daughter." Each step toward her table seemed to weigh more than the last. Tessa spotted him before he arrived. The joy drained from her face instantly. Her hands fell into her lap, her posture straightened, and the wall she wore around him slid back into place. "Dad," she said aloud, her voice slightly uneven, marked by years of not hearing herself clearly. "Tessa." His eyes flicked to Logan and Asher, assessing them like numbers on a ledger. "I didn't know you had company." Logan stood, offering his hand with quiet respect. "Logan Hayes, and this is my son Asher." Grayson shook hands, his gaze sweeping over Logan's casual clothes, his lack of polish, searching for a category. "Not business, not wealth. Something else." Tessa cut the silence sharply. "Daddy can't sign," she told Logan, her voice flat. "So we'll have to switch to verbal." "I can translate," Logan offered gently. But Tessa shook her head. "He doesn't like accommodations. Makes him feel—" "What was it you once said, Dad?" "Handicapped by proxy." Grayson flinched. "Tessa, that's not—" "It's exactly what you said," she interrupted, her eyes hard. She pushed her chair back slightly. "Logan, Asher, we should go." "No," Grayson said quickly, the urgency in his voice startling even himself. "Please stay, I'd like to understand." Tessa's expression was skeptical, but Logan caught her eye and signed something quick, steadying her. She exhaled, her shoulders easing just slightly. "Asher," Logan said softly, "why don't you show Mr. Carraway what you practiced today?" The boy's face lit up. He turned to Grayson with eager hands, signing carefully. "Nice to meet you." "I'm learning to talk to Tessa," Logan translated aloud, but Grayson barely heard him. His focus was locked on the boy, this child who had known his daughter for 3 weeks and could already communicate with her better than he had managed in 23 years. "How long have you been learning?" he asked, his voice thick. Asher proudly held up 3 fingers, then signed again. Logan smiled. 3 weeks. He says it's fun, like being a secret agent." 3 weeks, Grayson repeated softly, the words heavy with self-condemnation. "Dad," Tessa started, but he raised his hand to stop her. "Show me," he said, turning to Logan. "Show me how to say hello to my daughter." Logan hesitated, glancing at Tessa. She looked frozen, as if afraid to breathe. Finally, he raised his hands and demonstrated hello. "Daughter." Grayson copied. His powerful hands that signed contracts worth millions, now trembling as they formed something far more important. "Hello?" "Daughter." Tessa's eyes filled with tears. She signed back slowly, her hands shaking. "Hello, Dad, what did she say?" Grayson demanded. "She said, 'Hello, Dad,'" Logan translated softly. For a moment, no one moved. Then Grayson pulled out a chair and sank into it, his composure unraveling. 19 years, he whispered. 19 years since the meningitis. I hired tutors, interpreters, doctors, but I never—" His voice cracked. "I never learned myself." "You never tried," Tessa said bitterly. "I told myself I was too old, too busy. But the truth—" He swallowed hard. "The truth is I was terrified. Afraid I'd fail you, afraid I'd look weak." Tessa turned to Logan, her eyes wide with recognition. "Fear of failure," she signed aloud. "That's what you said weeks ago." Grayson's head bowed. "Teach me, please, both of you. I know I don't deserve it, but—" "It's never too late, right?" Tessa's hands trembled as she reached out, gripping her father's. With her free hand, she signed carefully. Logan translated, "It's never too late to learn." And so the lessons began. That day, Grayson Carraway, the man who commanded boardrooms and bent markets to his will, became a student at his daughter's table. His fingers stumbled clumsily through the air, awkward and unsteady. Tessa corrected him gently, adjusting his hands with patience she never thought she'd have for him. "No, Dad, like this." Logan watched it unfold, translating when needed, though increasingly less. Asher joined in too, proudly showing Grayson the tricks he had learned. 6 weeks later, the change was undeniable. Grayson, once towering and untouchable, now sat humbly across from his daughter, practicing signs under her careful eye. His progress was slow, his movements imperfect, but each word built a bridge where before there had been a wall. You know what's ironic? Grayson admitted one evening, his hands clumsy but determined. I built a fortune on communication, on convincing people, on knowing the right words. But with your own daughter, you were speaking a different language, Logan signed gently. No, Grayson corrected, his voice low. I refused to learn hers. I expected the world to bend around me. But I was the one disabled by pride and fear. And for the first time, Tessa believed him. The weeks turned into months, and with each passing day, the Caraway family began to look less like strangers and more like people building bridges across silence. Tessa's confidence grew as her father learned to sign, not perfectly, not quickly, but with genuine effort. Each stumble became a lesson, each mistake an opportunity for laughter instead of anger. For the first time in her life, Tessa wasn't the only one reaching across the gap. The true breakthrough came on a rainy Thursday. Tessa returned from volunteering at the museum to find her father already at the cafe. He stood when she entered, his hands trembling slightly but his movements clear. Madison, you are my sunshine. You always have been. I'm sorry it took me so long to tell you. Her breath caught. Tears blurred her vision. He hadn't just signed to her. He had used her sign name, the one her mother had given her before she died. You remembered, Tessa whispered, her hand shaking. I should have continued after she was gone, Grayson admitted, his own eyes wet. I should have done so many things differently. From the corner, Asher looked up from his sketch pad. Is this happy crying or sad crying? Both, Logan answered softly, signing as he spoke. Sometimes they're the same. The ripple of change spread beyond their family. Grayson didn't stop at learning for himself. He hired tutors for his entire staff. Marcus, his driver, now signed greetings during rides. Elena, the housekeeper, practiced every morning. He insisted his business associates add accessibility to their developments. I spent 2 decades building walls, he confessed to Logan one afternoon. Walls of money. Walls of pride. But you and Asher showed me how to build bridges instead. And in that rebuilding, something unexpected grew between Tessa and Logan. Their conversations deepened, beyond surface words, beyond polite exchanges. She taught him signs for emotions Oliver had never been old enough to express. He shared the fears of raising a child alone. The nights he felt inadequate, the mornings he wasn't sure how to go on. You're not half a parent just because you're alone, Tessa insisted one evening. Asher has a complete family. He has you. When their hands spoke, honesty flowed more easily than words ever could. One night, under the glow of the cafe lights, Logan signed, May I? Please, Tessa signed back, and their first kiss happened in silence, spoken in hands before lips. For Asher, it was simple. Does this mean Tessa's my mom now? He asked bluntly. Logan laughed, signing carefully. Let's take things slow. But Asher was already signing to Tessa. Want to be my mom? Her laugh mixed with tears. Want to be my son? She signed back. Deal, he answered, proud to use the word he had learned the week before. 1 year later, the private dining room of the Boulevard Cafe no longer echoed with polite small talk from Grayson's associates. It was alive with a new kind of conversation. Hands moving, faces glowing, voices raised only in joy. Tessa's 24th birthday wasn't lonely. It was crowded with people who spoke her language, her father, her friends from the museum, Logan and Asher, even the household staff who had worked hard to learn for her. Grayson stood, his movement still imperfect but his meaning crystal clear. Last year, I gave you a condo, he signed haltingly. This year I give you my voice in your language. My promise to never stop learning. You are not broken, I was, disabled by my pride. Love means learning someone else's language. The room was silent except for quiet sniffles. Then Grayson smiled. Also, I hope Logan will officially join the family soon. I need more help with my homework. Laughter broke the tension. And in that moment, Logan rose, a small velvet box in his hand. He turned only to Tessa, blocking out the crowd. Tessa, he signed, his face unshakably steady. You taught me that silence isn't empty. It's full of possibility. You showed me that connection isn't about words, but about choosing to understand. You brought light into places I thought would stay dark forever. He opened the box. Inside was a simple silver ring set with a small sapphire, her birthstone. Will you marry me? Her hands flew to her chest, tears streaming as she signed yes again and again, pulling him into a kiss. The room erupted in celebration. Voices, hands waving in silent applause, love expressed in every way possible. 2 years later, the Bridge Center stood as a monument to what they had built together. Founded by Tessa and Logan, supported by Grayson's resources, it offered free sign language classes to families, schools, and businesses. Its walls were glass, open and transparent, designed to erase barriers before they could be built. 300 people came to its opening day. "This is Oliver's legacy too," Tessa told Logan, her hands graceful and sure. "Every sign, every connection, it began with him." Asher, now 11 and fluent in both English and ASL, ran in grinning. "Grandpa says hurry or we'll miss dinner." "Grandpa needs patience," Tessa teased. Grayson appeared in the doorway, his hands moving fluidly. "I waited 20 years to learn to speak to my daughter. Patience is all I have now." The four of them walked out together, an unusual family but a complete one. Later, driving toward the restaurant, Tessa looked out the window, her heart full. "You know what the best gift is?" she signed. "What?" Logan asked, eyes flicking to her at the red light. "Second chances. My father got a second chance to be my dad. You got a second chance to use your signs. I got a second chance to believe I was worth learning for." From the back seat, Asher leaned forward. "And I got a mom who shows me that different doesn't mean less." Grayson, seated beside him, signed carefully. "And I learned it's never too late to learn the language of someone you love." The light turned green, and they drove on. A family formed not by perfection, but by choice. By the decision to build bridges one sign at a time. Years later, Tessa would look back on that birthday she spent alone and marvel. A single dad choosing to approach her. A child eager to learn. A father finally facing his fear. Small acts of connection that rippled outward until hundreds of families could speak across silence. But in that moment, watching her husband sign a joke to her son and seeing her father laugh because he understood, she didn't think about the impact. She thought only of belonging, something she once believed was impossible. The millionaire's daughter, once alone in silence, was now surrounded by love. Not because someone fixed her, but because someone saw her, someone chose her, someone learned her language, and sometimes that's all any of us really need. As the car rolled toward the restaurant, Logan glanced in the rearview mirror. His hands moved gently. "I love you." Tessa smiled, tears shining, and signed back. "Thank you for choosing me." "Always," Logan answered. "From the very first day, always." If this story moved you, don't forget to subscribe. Share in the comments below. What bridges have you built to connect with someone different from yourself? What new languages, spoken, signed, or of the heart, have you learned for love? Thank you for watching. Remember, connection isn't about perfection. It's about effort, presence, and the courage to meet someone where they are. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories, reminding us of the bridges we can build when we choose understanding over distance.